Hi, this is Alex from PHP Academy and welcome to this tutorial on creating a vertical menu in CSS. Now, we have previously looked at creating a vertical menu which was slightly more difficult than this one's going to be. In this tutorial we're going to be looking at creating a vertical menu and we're going to create more of a hover over effect on the buttons as we hover over them. So as per the last tutorial, we're going to be using an unordered list. We're going to assign a class to that unordered list, and inside we're going to have list items with links, and then just some text will pop in. Then we're going to be styling it with CSS. So we'll create the markup first for this, and then take a look in the browser, see how it looks, and then we'll start to gradually style this up. Okay, so what do we need to do? We need to create an unordered list. And inside this unordered list we need some list elements or list items. So I'm going to create one here, and inside I'm going to create an anchor tag, and I'm just going to write home in there. And there's going to be no link for now because we're not linking through to anything, we're just styling the menu. Okay, so I'm going to give this a class of menu, so we can identify this unordered list by the class menu. Let's go ahead and duplicate these down. And we'll just write absolutely anything in here. So about us, we'll say forum, downloads, and contact. Okay, so now we've got our unordered list, we've got our list items inside, and we've got our links. So we've got everything we need for the menu. We obviously just need to style it up because it looks pretty bland at the moment. We've got the default styles for the unordered list, which are the bullets just here. We've got an unnecessary amount of padding inwards, and we've got this horrible default blue color for the links. We also haven't got the font changed or anything. It just looks like an unordered list, which is not what we want. So I've got my primary.css file open, which I've linked through from my markup, so we can use this to style our menu. So let's go ahead and start to style our menu. Well, the first thing we need to do is address the unordered list itself, which we've assigned the class name of menu. So we use the dot selector to select a class, and we give the class name, which is menu. Now what we need to do is give this a list style, so we need to say list style, and obviously the list style we want to choose is none because we don't want a list style. So let's go over to the browser and refresh, and you can see that the bullet points have been removed. Now we also want to get rid of that awful padding and that margin, so let's go ahead and set the padding to 0 and set the margin to 0. Usually you do this in some kind of CSS reset at the top of your page, but since we're focusing on individual items in this tutorial series, we'll just do it as we go along. But usually you'd declare at the top of your page something like UL, comma, and then a few other elements, and then you'll say padding 0. But you could do this for this tutorial either way that you find easier. Okay, so we've set the padding and the margin to 0. Let's go ahead and refresh. You see that's just popped right up to the top hand corner of the page. We're not creating a container for this. I'm just going to create it in the inside of the body. We're not going to waste time creating a container. Now what do we want to do? Well, we don't need to go ahead and set a background color because that's just going to be white. The two things we do need to do is give this a width, because at the moment, if I just go ahead and set the background to something like EEE, you'll notice that the oh no, that's a bit too light perhaps. Let's say 999. So when I refresh, you see that the unordered list spans the entire width of the page, and that's because by default it's displayed as a block. So I'm going to go and inspect this, and you can see that the unordered list is displayed as a block just here. So it's going to fill up the entire contents of the page. It's not going to let anything float at the left or the right of it. So we need to go ahead and fix this, and we just need to essentially predefine a width. So I'll leave the background in there so we can see what we're doing. I'm going to set a width of 150 pixels. So when I refresh now, you see that that has been modified, and we now have a thinner menu. Okay, so let's go ahead and get rid of the background. The next thing I want to do is set a border for this, so sort of contain everything. We'll then be going ahead and setting an individual border for each menu item inside, not to give it a 3D effect, but to give it a more beveled, you know, poppy effect. So let's go ahead and set a border for this. We're going to set a 1 pixel border. The style of the border is going to be solid, and I'm choosing AAA as the color. So when I refresh, you see that we've got this light grey sort of nice border at the, around the edge of this now. Okay, so we've created the outer container. Now we need to focus on what's inside. So what we have inside of this is lots of LIs. Now we're not going to be targeting the LIs specifically. We're going to be targeting the links within the LIs, because we need to make sure that when we hover over this, wherever we hover, we don't want to just only be able to hover over the text. We want to be able to hover, you know, say home here. I might want to go ahead and click here for home, but at the moment I can't because the link's over here. So we need to change the link so we can, you know, fill the width of this container. So hopefully that makes sense. If not, it will do in a minute, I'm sure. But let's go ahead and target these A elements, or these anchor elements within the menu. So we say menu. Now we want to go and select LIs inside of that menu, and then we want to select A tags inside of LI inside of menu. So we're just sort of traversing down through the well, you know, like the nested elements. Okay, so the key thing about creating these links, so we can actually, you know, hover over any part of here, is to change the display type. Now I'm going to change the display type to block. Now by default they're set to inline, which means that they will, you know, sit against text, flush against text, things like that. So when I refresh now, you can see that the whole of the width here is clickable, and that's for each one of these links. Okay, so you can see that the active color is appearing here when I click down. So we've solved that problem. You know, we wouldn't want to create a vertical menu with large buttons and only allow our users to click on the text itself. That would be silly. Okay, so now that we've set a block, we want to give this some padding, because currently the text is sat right against the edge. So let's go ahead and give this a padding of 5 pixels. So remember, this is for each of them, so it will separate them out underneath here, above, and to the left and the right as well. So you can see now that when I inspect, you can see that the green area is the padding, the blue area is the element itself, and the green on the outside there is the padding. Okay, so what do we want to do next? Well, we want to go ahead and set a border to this. I'm going to set quite a thick border. I'm going to say 2 pixels, solid, and I'm going to set the color as DDD. And let's go ahead and refresh that. You can see that we've got this sort of slightly lighter border now, and already it's started to create a more, you know, like a 3D bevelly type effect on here already. But now I'm going to set a different border for the bottom, just to give it that bit of variation and make it a bit more interesting. So we're going to say border bottom 1 pixel solid AAA. Now what this will do is border will set the border for the left, the top, left, right and bottom, but border bottom will override just the one property set by that border property. So, you know, we've kept our top, left and right, but now this one's just overriding it. Well, let's go ahead and preview that first. Okay, so you can see we've got, you know, an even more 3D effect now. If you were to sort of zoom in on this with the magnifying tool or whatever, they look quite 3D, so that's quite nice, just a subtle effect. Okay, so we now need to deal with the links. They're not very nice looking at the moment. They're just default colors, default style, default font. Let's go ahead and set the text decoration to none, because we don't want any underlines. That will remove the underline on them links. Let's now go ahead and set the font. Now, it's probably not a good idea to set the font within here, but we're going to do this. We're not going to provide any backups, any font backups. I've already done a tutorial on fonts in this series, so refer back to that if you're unsure. But I'm going to set the font to 1EM and Georgia. It's just quite a nice menu font to choose. Okay, so we've changed the font to 1EM in size and Georgia. Let's go ahead and set the color now. Now what this will do is it will override the color for the links as well. So when we refresh, you can see that that has been changed to that specific color. Now, the only problem we've got here is in the Internet Explorer, or at least at the time of recording, this will actually, you know, not work properly. It will look right, it will look absolutely fine, apart from there'll be an extra extra padding. It's not actually padding, but there'll be extra space at the bottom of each of your li elements. So there'll be sort of gaps in between here, if you like. So the way we solve that is you use the zoom property, which is only available in Internet Explorer. It just provides sort of a bit of a workaround on that. So, you know, by the time you're watching this, you might have, you know, there might have been another Internet Explorer version released, but I think 9 at the moment, this will not work. So we're required to use the zoom property and give it a value of 1. You could probably read more about that, so go ahead and Google for it or something. Okay, so we've actually started up our menu now. The only thing we're missing is a hover over effect. So we need to create a hover over effect when we hover over these. Now the beauty of this is we can target the anchor tags within this, and we can change the background color on hover. Remember, we have the hover property that we can apply to an anchor tag like we would a link, because essentially now these squares here are links. So what we want to do is we want to go down here, we want to set a new selector, which is menu, LIA, this time using the pseudo class hover. And in here, when we hover, what do we want to do? Well, I'm just going to be boring and choose the background as black, background #000. And then I'm going to go ahead and set the color of the text within it, to white. So we are simultaneously changing the background color of the link to black, and we're changing the text to white, because obviously the dark text of the menu at the moment wouldn't show up. So now when we hover over it, you can see that we've got the black background and we've got the white text. And you can also see that the border around the edge also gives us, you know, continues to give us that 3D effect. Now, that's the end of this tutorial, but obviously by all means go ahead and play around with it, change the colors, change the backgrounds, change the hover effects, maybe even change what happens when you have visited them, or, you know, applying a class of when you're actually on a specific page. So when you're on the About Us page, you might want this to stay black. So you can take all that knowledge from the previous tutorial about the horizontal menu, but for now that's creating a vertical menu in CSS.